Hello and welcome to the Grizzled Warmaster. My name is Doug, and today we're going to look at some Lumineth tactics, specifically looking at the Great Nations. Alright, first off we're going to start with the one that I actually don't think will ever come into competitive play, and that is Iliatha. Now while it does have a couple of advantages, specifically its ability of Unity of Purpose, which allows for 2 units within 3 inches of each other to benefit from the same command ability. This is a fairly strong ability as it allows, say, 2 units of archers to use volley fire, or 2 units of other Venari to use maybe all-out attack, but it could be stronger. Soulbound with +2 bravery on all your units, it's weak to mediocre in terms of comparison terms. +2 bravery is not too bad considering most of your units only have a 6 or 7 bravery, but generally speaking bravery buffs just aren't that great. The Simulacra amulets, which is an artifact, 4+ when the wielder is killed on a 4+, they are fully healed and any wounds remaining to be allocated are ignored. That is a fairly strong ability. And the fact that they have no assigned command traits is fairly strong, except for the fact that the unaligned command traits aren't stellar in this book, which is one of the reasons you will almost always pick a Great Nation. So that's not the strongest advantage there. Some of the disadvantages, well, they have one big disadvantage, which is strike in unison. Their command ability is just dumb. It is essentially volley fire or all-out attack, except for you have to have 2 or more models in your unit. But otherwise, you can reroll hit rolls of 1 for that unit, just like the volley fire or all-out attack command abilities that everyone has access to. So unless this is leading towards those specific command abilities disappearing in 3rd edition, I don't see why this is even a thing, but it is. Alright, so let's go ahead and move on from Iliatha to the next best of the Great Nations, and let's talk about Geometrica. Geometrica has some good advantages. One really, really strong one, which is the Mountain Realm. The Alarith ignore up to rend 2 instead of -1. So that is super good. There are very few -3 rend, so your guys are always going to have a 4-up, and if you want to spend an Aether Quartz, a 3-up. Combine that with the -1 to hit that your Spirit of the Mountains can, Avalanor or the Spirit of the Mountains can hand out. That could be really good. The Mountain's Gift artifact, which is +1 damage to a melee weapon, which I think you use. It's really worded very odd. I think it's once per. Oh, okay. It's 1 attack. Once per phase, you can add 1 damage to inflicted by 1 attack made with the melee weapon you choose, which isn't great, but the 6+ DPR that you also get and the 5+ to ignore spell that targets the bearer make this a fairly strong artifact. I say fairly strong because it's really only strong if you don't have these guys anywhere close to Techless, if you have Techless in your army. Because if he's handing out his 5+ DPR and his 4+ to ignore spells, then this becomes pointless. Alright, the other strong thing about the Geometrica is the Alarith Temple War Scroll Battalion, which is really good. It's got everything you're going to want in a Geometrica army. It's going to give you access to a couple of Alarith Stone Guard units, either Avalanor the Stone King or a Spirit of the Mountain, and your Stoneheart Mage? Your Stone Mage. Just your Alarith Stone Mage. You're going to want all of those in a Geometrica army anyways, so fit them all into the battalion. And then as long as a unit from the Stone Guard from that battalion are close to a hero from that battalion, so either the Stone Mage or Avalanor, if you have him in there, then they're going to be able to reroll saves if you choose to allow them to. You say they turn their skin to stone. They can only pile in an inch, but they get to reroll saves. So very good, especially since they will rarely be getting that save rended. So Geometrica can be very powerful, especially if you want to run all of those Alarith units. Get that. I mean, I would go for the 20-point difference. I would take Avalanor every time because he gives that 12-inch bubble of -1 to hit. So you get those Stone Guard, Avalanor, and your Stone Mage all moving up the field together, keeping them within 12 inches of each other. They'll be re-rolling saves. They'll have that -1 hit. It's going to be really good. So I like that a lot. However, they do have some disadvantages. One is redoubled force, their command ability, which basically just doubles down on the Alarith Tectonic Force ability. It lets them use it a second time if there's another unit within 1 inch. One, that's very situational. And two, I don't think the Tectonic Force ability is all that great, and you're rarely going to be using it. You might get a chance to push somebody off of an objective. You might be able to get the ability to push them into a more advantageous position, but I don't. It's one of those things that it's never going to be a key aspect to what you're doing. It might be a cool little, a little bit of here, a little bit there, but it's a weak command ability. The second one is Almighty Blow, which is the command trait you have to take, which sacrifices your normal attacks. Which, so let's say you're probably going to have to put this on your Stone Mage. I doubt you're going to want to put it on a Cathalar, but let's say you put it on your Stone Mage, so you're giving up the ability to do D3 attacks to take one attack that hits on a 2+, has to target an enemy within 1 inch, and it does a D3 mortal wounds. So maybe that's a little more reliable, I guess you could say, but you don't want your Stone Mage in combat anyway, so it's very situational. It's not nearly as powerful as some of the other required command traits out there. The other thing is, I don't think Alarith are going to be all of that competitive in the current meta. There's just too much other good stuff in this army, and they're going to be fun to play, and I think people will play them in, depending on what their local meta is like, or in fun games. But true competitive play, you need to rely on Venari and Teclis and using their shenanigans to hold up the enemy. And we're going to talk about that in the other two ones. But I don't think Alarith are going to be the most competitive way to play them. All right, so let's look at Sciar. That's how I'm going to pronounce that. Who knows what the Sciar. They are, I think, what people are defaulting to the most obvious competitive army. And that's probably just because of this first ability, Gleaming Brightness, which allows you to have 2 Aether Quartz reserves instead of 1. Very strong. The Aether Quartz are amazing. They've got 4 really strong abilities you can do with them. And the ability to have 2 of them is very strong, in my opinion. So that everybody's going to get to use one of those abilities right away. And they're very key, I think, to either keep your guys alive if you don't get to go first, or to really hit when you need to hit, or maybe even make that clutch reroll a save, or make that save, or not save, sorry, reroll that casting roll, or get that +1 to make the casting roll when you really need your archers to get their Power of Heesh off, or something like that. Or maybe you really need your Cathalar to get the the Overwhelming Dread, I think it's called. No, Darkness of the Soul. Where they say, like, I need to lock that unit down. They got that reroll or something. So there's really cool clutch things you can do with the Aether Quartz, and having an extra one's going to be great. And the next one, Deplete Reserves, that command ability, the ability to use more than one of those Aether Quartz per phase. Maybe 2 of your guys are getting hit and really need that +1 to saves. So that can be really good. Also, situationally very strong is Goading Arrogance. It's a command trait your general has to take, and at first glance it seems really bad. Basically, your general picks an enemy hero within 6 inches and says they can only attack him, the general who has the trait. I think it gives you a +1 to hit that character, but that's not what you're going to use it for. You're going to use it on your Cathalar to sit behind your line of wardens, pick an enemy hero that's 6 inches away, tell them they can only attack the general, and then they're stuck in combat with your wardens and can't attack. That is going to be so good against people like Mega Gargants, against was it the Orc boss, the boss on the Maw Crusher, Catacross, any of those really big, kind of powerful, get into melee heroes. You're going to be, I lock you down, you can't do anything. So those are all really powerful advantages Sciar has. It does have some disadvantages, though. One, I think you're going to need Techless to be magically dominant in Sciar. They have less magical stuff going through for them, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I think a lot of people are in competitive armies are going to want to play Techless, but this kind of takes away your ability to do without him. I could see some people saying, no, I'm just going to run a couple of Cathalars and then all Venari or something like that, and they'll be all my casters. But you lose out on so much not having Techless, especially Resilience, because not only do you have the 5-up damage prevention roll, which, yes, somebody else can get with the Protection of Heesh, but they also get a 4-up to ignore spells from him. So it's very important to have Techless in your army. But that is still a disadvantage. They are going to be reliant on him to really dominate those other magical armies, or try to. The other thing is you're probably going to need multiple Cathalar, or you're going to suffer the leadership blows that you take from using Aether Quartz, especially multiple of them in the same phase. So if you are, only from using multiple of them, or backup because one got killed. But the amount of Aether Quartz you're going to be using, you need those Cathalar to keep your guys from suddenly having 4-up leadership, which could be devastating. All right. The last great nation we're going to look at is the one I think is going to be the most dominant, and that is Zaytrek. I don't think a lot of people are necessarily thinking about these guys right now, but they have a lot going through for them. First off, their Lambent Mystics ability gives them a +1 to the first casting, unbinding, or dispelling roll for each friendly Zaytrek wizard. Now, I'm going to say, this is the Great Nation I want to try out, and I am going to run them with Techless, which means I'm getting a +2 to the first casting, unbinding, or dispelling roll for each friendly Zaytrek wizard in my army. That means all my Venari, my Cathalars, they are all going to get +2 to their first casting. In addition, Zaytrek wizard heroes know an extra spell, so you got your Cathalar is going to have Darkness of the Soul, is going to have two other spells, plus the one that Zaytrek gives you, which we'll talk about here in the end. So lots of magic going along here. Fast Learner, the command trait that the general gets, allows them to unbind one extra spell. In addition, they can reroll the second unbinding attempt. I'm actually going to revise this. This is not fairly strong. It is strong. Now, situationally, you can run into armies that really don't have a lot of magic, in which case Techless being able to unbind one spell automatically might be enough for you. But if you get beyond that, you run up into another army like Tzeentch or Seraphon, other Lumineth armies, maybe if you've got, the Legions of Nagash with Archon or Nagash himself. These are going to be important because the general will be getting a +2 to his first unbind attempt, and then his second unbind attempt will be +1 with a reroll. So that's going to be really good. The Gift of Selenar, the artifact, also pretty good. That's a 6-up DPR, but if Teclis is in your army, which I would recommend he be, it's going to be a 4+. So that's going to help keep your Cathalar alive. You're going to want to have this on your Cathalar, which is probably going to be the only other hero you have. And then finally, they don't get a command ability, they get a spell. And that spell is really good. Overwhelming Heat. It's got a 24-inch range, which is probably the best part about it. Because there are a lot of ways in the Lumineth book to mess with your enemy's ability to move and do things. But a lot of them are 18 inches. Here you get a 24-inch range, give somebody a half move, then you're going to roll a die, and if you're equal to or greater than their save, that unit that you target save, then you do D3 mortal wounds. That's really kind of that's just a bonus there. Really what you want to do is you want to pick out an enemy unit that you don't want to deal with yet and make sure they're only moving at half speed. When you combine that with things like the Cathalar's Darkness of the Soul, which is roll 2d6 and beat their bravery to prevent them from doing everything, move, pile in, charge, attack, all of that stuff. You've got if for some reason you wanted to have a Stone Mage, they've got their gravity spell that's going to hamper movement. Then you've got the what is it called? The Lore of the I think it's Lore of the Mountains or Lore of the High Peaks. You've got the Crippling Vertigo, which can also mess with their ability. Roll 2d6, mess with their ability. The nice thing here with the Overwhelming Heat is it's just half move. You're not rolling dice trying to beat them to prevent them from doing anything. You just guarantee half move. Now, the others are slightly better in the sense that if you do beat their leadership on those 2d6s, so it's going to be especially good against a lot of the destruction armies, some order armies, but destruction's going to be the big ones that they're going to work really good against. Is beat their leadership by 2d6 and they can't do anything. But this is just one more spell. Means on average, if you've got Zaytrek Wizards, you've got your Cathalar, and you've got Teclis and or a Stone Mage, you've got 3 different ways that you're going to keep the enemy from moving around and doing what they want to do. Super powerful. So let's look at what they need to worry about, their disadvantages. One is, and this is outside of the actual play of the game, is spell overload. You as the player are going to have a lot to juggle with all of your different units, keeping track of what spells they have, when to use their spells, when to, what's the appropriate spell to call on the guys that have multiple spells. So that can be a bit overwhelming, especially for a new player, trying to figure out what's best. And then the thing you can't do here is just default to all my guys have, all my Venari have Speed of Hitch. That's not how you're going to want to play Zaytrek. You need to make sure each of your Venari units has a unique spell. Maybe some overlap where you're like, okay, I really need 2 of these units to have Speed of Hitch just in case. One of them's going to take Total Eclipse, and then my Cathalar is going to have these other ones. So you're going to have, there's a lot of juggling on that front. The other thing is you're going all in on spellcasting. All your eggs are in the spellcasting basket. You're going to want to have mostly Venari units, so they're all wizards, and you just want to overwhelm your opponent with your casting. Like all of my guys, all my Venari units are casting a spell, drawing out those unbinds. My Cathalar's casting 2 spells. Maybe I'm throwing out a Ether Quartz to cast a second or a third with one of those units. Teclis is casting 4 spells. I'm just laying it on. I'm not letting the enemy react. But if you're going Zaytrek that way, you pretty much are going to want to go all in so that when you run into somebody like Seraphon or you run into Tzeentch, that you can overpower them. Because the last thing you want to do is go, hey, I'm going to go the magically dominant army and then not dominate magically. Because then you're going to suffer going, well, I put too many eggs in this one basket and I'm not doing it well enough. But I think this is going to be a really powerful one. So let's go ahead. Some conclusions here. One, I believe that Sciar and Zaytrek are going to be the most competitive Great Nations. They're the ones you're going to see on most tables. There are going to be some people who play Geometrica on the tournament scene. I don't have any doubt of that. I just don't think they're going to do as well. They may do really well against other ground and pound armies, but they're going to suffer against those what are clearly the dominant meta armies right now, like KO and Seraphon and Tzeentch. They're going to struggle with those. But Sciar and Zaytrek, I believe, can tangle with those other ones. And I think Zaytrek is really the hidden gem of this battle tome. Especially when you include Techless. They're going to just be so strong. They're going to have so much control over the enemy. You're even going to dominate people like Seraphon and Tzeentch. And you're going to dictate where things move, what they're allowed to do. So I think for that, and there are new units coming out. So I've not committed to a specific list yet. I mean, I have a list that I could play right now. But I want to kind of wait and see what we're getting for the new units when the Broken Realms tech list comes out to really dial them in. But I can tell you, for one thing, I am definitely going to have the Arlon Legion. I think that's what it's called. The Arlon Legion War Scroll Battalion. Yes, the Arlon Legion. It's your Cathalar and 2 to 4 units. Oops, sorry about that. 2 to 4 units of your Sentinels. That's your archers. So I'm going to take 2. And 2 units of or a matching number of wardens. So again, 2. What I'll probably do is go a unit of 20 archers, a unit of 10 archers, a unit of 10, or 2 units of 10 wardens, and then either one of the new units, another Cathalar, or a Dawn Rider unit. We'll see. I'm kind of juggling those. And then some endless spells. Initially, I was thinking I was going to do the Balewind Vortex and the Umbral Spell Portal, just to throw, give myself extra range on all of my spells. With the 24 inches that the spell, the Overwhelming Heat, gives you, I think I'm more leaning now towards having the Balewind Vortex and the Petrifying endless spell for the Lumineth. The Sigil of Petrification, I think it's called. No, the Rune of Petrification. I think that's a really powerful endless spell. So I think that could be a really good replacement for the Umbral Spell Portal. It's one more thing to control the battlefield and control where your enemy can go. It's a great way, like pick an enemy objective, in the enemy's backfield, throw that down there and say, well, if you want to control it, you're gonna suffer for it. So those are my ideas for the Great Nations and how I think they might play, or what some of the strengths and weaknesses are. Don't forget to like and subscribe. New videos are posted every Wednesday and Saturday. If you like our content, share with your friends and help us grow our channel. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.